The Day 600 held the line at El Bodón, 1811. Spain, September 1811. The Peninsular War raged across Iberia, and Napoleon's legions seemed unstoppable. The Duke of Wellington had pushed his army deep into enemy country. But now the French counterattack came in force. Near the small village of El Bodón, the fate of the British army suddenly hung by a thread. On a lonely ridge, barely 600 British infantrymen, men of the 5th, 77th and 94th Regiments of Foot, with 2 small guns at their side, were ordered to hold the position until the main army could retreat. Facing them was not a skirmish, not a raid, but a storm. Over 12,000 French infantry and cavalry sweeping forward like a tidal wave. The order was clear: stand and do not break. The ground shook as the French cavalry came thundering up the slope, sabers flashing in the sunlight, trumpets blaring their charge. Dust and smoke filled the air. The scarlet-coated British soldiers calmly dressed their ranks, their officers shouting above the din. Then came the command that every soldier knew by heart: form square. Bayonets dropped, muskets bristled outward. The British formed tight 4-sided walls of steel. The French horsemen hurled themselves at the squares, riding at full gallop, desperate to shatter the line. Horses reared and screamed as they struck the hedge of bayonets. Riders slashed and fired pistols into the mass, but the red squares did not yield. Volley after volley crashed out, each blast ripping gaps in the charging squadrons. The air was thick with powder smoke, the ground littered with fallen men and horses. The French circled, regrouped, and charged again. Time after time they tried, but still the thin British line stood, each man knowing that if one square collapsed, the others would be swallowed whole. The 2 guns on the ridge roared until their barrels ran hot, blasting canister into the attackers. Ammunition ran low. Men bit cartridges with bloody hands, their muskets kicking back against their shoulders until bruised black and blue. Still they fought on. At last, when the order came to withdraw, the retreat was as steady as a parade ground drill. The squares moved backwards step by step, still firing, still unbroken, their flags fluttering defiantly above them. All around, the French cavalry swarmed like wolves, but the redcoats kept their discipline, an island of iron in a sea of enemies. A French officer, watching in disbelief, was heard to cry out, "These devils are not men, but iron." When the smoke cleared, Wellington's army had escaped destruction, and the men of El Bodón had written themselves into legend. 600 had faced 12,000, and through sheer courage and discipline, they had held the line. Sometimes empire is not preserved by victories of conquest, but by desperate stands, where a few hundred refuse to bend, and in doing so, save thousands. Please like and follow for more.